Her heart stopped when he leaned in close, his breath warm against her ear. "Pretend to be my wife," the billionaire doctor whispered. She would have agreed to anything to escape her desperate situation, until he revealed his one impossible condition, asterisk. The rain pounded mercilessly against the hospital windows as Emma Matthews rushed through the emergency room doors, her scrubs already soaked from the brief dash from her car. 3 hours into a double shift, and the night had only begun. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the faces of waiting patients. Emma tucked a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear and checked her watch, 2:17 a.m. 5 more hours until she could collapse into her bed, if she was lucky. Matthews. Trauma coming in. 5 minutes out. The charge nurse's voice cut through the ambient chaos of the ER. Emma nodded, pulling her hair into a tight ponytail as she moved toward the trauma bay. This was her life now, endless shifts, mounting student debt, and the constant reminder that her mother's medical bills were piling up faster than she could pay them. At 28, Emma had imagined a different life for herself, not one where she counted pennies and worked herself to exhaustion. The ambulance bay doors burst open, paramedics wheeling in a middle-aged man with a severe head injury. Emma fell into the familiar rhythm of emergency medicine, her hands steady despite her fatigue. Hours blurred together as she moved from patient to patient, her mind occasionally drifting to the stack of past-due notices waiting on her kitchen counter. "You look like you could use this." Emma turned to find a paper cup of steaming coffee extended toward her. The man holding it was unfamiliar, tall with broad shoulders, dark hair peppered with distinguished silver at the temples, and eyes so intensely blue they seemed to pierce through her. His white coat was pristine, the name embroidered on it reading, Dr. Alexander Blackwood. "I don't believe we've met," Emma said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Are you new?" A slight smile curved his lips. "Just visiting. I'm consulting on a case." His voice was deep, with the faintest hint of an accent she couldn't place. Before she could respond, her pager buzzed. "Duty calls," she said with an apologetic smile, hurrying away. It wasn't until the end of her shift, as dawn broke over the city skyline, that Emma saw him again. Dr. Blackwood stood by the nurse's station, engaged in conversation with the hospital administrator. There was something magnetic about him, an aura of authority that commanded attention without effort. "Ah, Nurse Matthews," the administrator called, waving her over. "Dr. Blackwood was just asking about you." Emma approached cautiously, fatigue making her movements sluggish. "About me?" Dr. Blackwood's gaze was appraising. "Your handling of the trauma case earlier was impressive. Quick thinking, excellent technique." "Thank you," Emma replied, surprised by the compliment. "Dr. Blackwood is considering establishing a new trauma center," the administrator explained, his tone reverent. "He's looking for exceptional staff." Emma's heart skipped. A new position could mean better pay, better hours, a chance to finally get ahead of her mother's medical bills. "I'd like to discuss possibilities with you, Ms. Matthews," Dr. Blackwood said. "Perhaps over dinner?" The invitation caught her off guard. "Tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock. I'll have my driver pick you up." It wasn't a question but a statement, delivered with the confidence of a man unaccustomed to refusal. Before Emma could formulate a response, he handed her a business card and walked away, leaving her staring after him in bewilderment. The next evening found Emma standing outside her apartment building, wearing the only decent dress she owned, a simple black sheath that had seen better days. She debated canceling, uncomfortable with the presumptuous nature of the invitation, but the prospect of a better job was too tempting to dismiss. A sleek black car pulled to the curb, and a uniformed driver emerged to open the door for her. To her surprise, Dr. Blackwood sat inside, his attention fixed on a tablet in his hands. "Ms. Matthews," he acknowledged without looking up. "Thank you for joining me." The restaurant was the kind Emma had only seen in magazines, crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, and waitstaff that moved like shadows. As they were seated at a secluded table, Emma felt painfully out of place. "You seem uncomfortable," Dr. Blackwood observed, studying her over the rim of his water glass. "I'm not accustomed to places like this," Emma admitted. "Honesty. Refreshing." He set down his glass. "I value directness, Ms. Matthews, so let me be direct with you. I've reviewed your file. Graduated top of your class, exceptional performance reviews, yet you're drowning in debt." Emma stiffened. "How do you know about my financial situation?" "I make it my business to know everything about potential investments." His gaze was unapologetic. "Your mother's multiple sclerosis treatment costs are substantial." Anger flared in Emma's chest. "My personal life is not up for discussion, Dr. Blackwood. If this dinner isn't about a professional opportunity, I'll be leaving." As she moved to stand, his hand shot out, grasping her wrist. "Wait." For the first time, a crack appeared in his composed facade. "Please." Something in his tone made her hesitate. "I apologize for my approach," he said, releasing her wrist. "But I do have a proposition for you, one that could solve your financial problems permanently." Emma slowly sat back down. "I'm listening." Dr. Blackwood leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I need you to pretend to be my wife." The words hung in the air between them, absurd and unexpected. Emma waited for the punchline, but his expression remained serious. "You're joking," she finally said. "I assure you, I'm not." He straightened his already impeccable tie. "It would be a temporary arrangement, 6 months at most. In return, I'll pay off your student loans and cover your mother's medical expenses for the next 5 years." Emma's mind reeled. The amount he was offering would change her life completely, free her from the crushing weight of debt that had defined her existence for years. But the proposition was insane. "Why would a man like you need a fake wife?" she asked, suspicion coloring her tone. Dr. Blackwood's expression darkened. "My reasons are my own. All you need to know is that it's a business matter, nothing illegal or immoral." "That's not good enough," Emma countered. "I need to know what I'd be getting into." A muscle twitched in his jaw. "My grandfather is dying," he finally said. "He's the founder of Blackwood Pharmaceuticals and controls the majority of shares. His will stipulates that the company passes to me only if I'm married by his death, an old-fashioned attempt to ensure the family legacy continues." "And you can't find a real wife?" Emma couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. "I have no interest in marriage," he stated flatly. "My work is my priority. A temporary pretense is far more efficient than a messy divorce later." Emma shook her head in disbelief. "This is crazy. You don't even know me." "I know enough. You're intelligent, capable, and desperate enough to consider my offer." His bluntness was jarring. "Think about it, Ms. Matthews. Financial freedom in exchange for 6 months of your time." The waiter arrived with their appetizers, forcing a pause in the conversation. Emma's mind raced, weighing the absurdity of the proposition against the reality of her situation. Her mother's next treatment was due in 2 weeks, and she was already behind on rent. "If, and that's a big if, I were to consider this," Emma said carefully after the waiter departed, "I would have conditions of my own." Interest flickered in Dr. Blackwood's eyes. "Such as?" "A contract specifying the exact terms, including the end date and payment details. I would continue working at the hospital. And I would need my own living space within whatever residence we would share." He nodded slowly. "Reasonable requests. Anything else?" Emma took a deep breath. "Yes. I need to know there's nothing else, no hidden expectations or conditions that you're not telling me about." Dr. Blackwood's expression remained unreadable for a long moment. Then, with deliberate slowness, he reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a stunning diamond ring that caught the light in dazzling prisms. "There is one condition," he said, his voice suddenly cold. "You will never, under any circumstances, fall in love with me." The unexpected stipulation caught Emma off guard. She almost laughed at the absurdity, as if she could ever develop feelings for this arrogant, calculating man. "That won't be a problem," she assured him, her voice steady despite the strange twist in her stomach. "Don't underestimate the situation, Ms. Matthews. We'll be living in close quarters, attending events together, presenting ourselves as a loving couple to the world. Lines can blur." "Not for me," Emma insisted. "I'm not looking for love, Dr. Blackwood. I'm looking for financial stability for my mother and myself." He studied her face intently before nodding. "Then we have an agreement. My lawyer will draw up the contracts tomorrow." As they finished their meal in strained silence, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she had just made a deal with the devil, a devastatingly handsome devil with eyes like Arctic ice and a condition that should have been the easiest thing in the world to fulfill. Little did she know how impossible it would prove to be. The Blackwood estate sprawled across 30 acres of manicured grounds, the main house an imposing structure of stone and glass that seemed to rise organically from the landscape. Emma stood in the circular driveway, her few possessions packed in 2 suitcases beside her, wondering if she had lost her mind. Ms. Matthews. Dr. Blackwood, Alexander, as she would now have to call him, appeared in the doorway. "Welcome to your new home." The interior of the mansion was a study in minimalist luxury, open spaces, clean lines, and artwork that probably cost more than Emma would earn in a lifetime. A stern-faced housekeeper named Mrs. Chen showed her to her suite of rooms, larger than her entire apartment. "Dinner is served promptly at 7, Mrs. Chen informed her. "Dr. Blackwood expects punctuality." Left alone, Emma sank onto the edge of the bed, reality crashing down around her. What had she done? The contract she'd signed that morning was comprehensive. Her debts would be paid, her mother's care secured, in exchange for 6 months of pretending to be madly in love with a man who had explicitly forbidden the real thing. A knock at the door startled her. Alexander stood there, changed from his earlier suit into casual wear that somehow looked equally expensive. "We need to discuss our story," he said without preamble. "How we met, fell in love, why we married quickly." Emma nodded, following him to a study lined with books. For the next hour, they constructed a fictional romance, a chance meeting at a medical conference, a whirlwind courtship, a private ceremony in the Maldives. "My grandfather will want details," Alexander explained, making notes on a tablet. "He's suspicious by nature." "When will I meet him?" Emma asked. "Tomorrow. He's being transferred from the hospital to his estate. We'll visit in the afternoon." Alexander's expression softened slightly. "He's a difficult man, but he raised me after my parents died. Try to remember that when he interrogates you." It was the first personal information he had volunteered, and Emma found herself curious about the man behind the cold facade. "How old were you when you lost your parents?" Alexander stiffened. 8. Car accident. His tone made it clear the subject was closed. The next day, dressed in a conservative blue dress Alexander had provided, along with an entire wardrobe she'd found in her closet that morning, Emma sat beside him in the back of his car, the diamond ring heavy on her finger. "Remember," he said as they approached a mansion even larger than his own, "as far as anyone knows, we're deeply in love." Emma nodded, her stomach knotting with anxiety. As they walked up the steps to the front door, Alexander surprised her by taking her hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles in a gesture that seemed almost tender. "Smile," he murmured. "You look like you're heading to an execution." Emma forced her lips into what she hoped was a convincing smile as the door opened to reveal a butler who led them through the house to a sunroom where an elderly man sat in a wheelchair, a blanket over his knees despite the warmth of the day. "Grandfather," Alexander greeted, his voice warmer than Emma had ever heard it. "I'd like you to meet my wife, Emma." Harold Blackwood's eyes were the same piercing blue as his grandson's, though clouded with age and illness. He studied Emma with open suspicion. "So you're the woman who managed to capture my grandson's heart," he said, his voice surprisingly strong. "Forgive me if I find that hard to believe. Alexander has always been married to his work." "People change," Emma replied, squeezing Alexander's hand. "Sometimes they just need to meet the right person." The old man's eyes narrowed. "And what attracted you to my grandson? His charm? Or perhaps his fortune?" "Grandfather," Alexander warned. "It's all right," Emma said, meeting the old man's gaze steadily. "Actually, sir, it was his hands." Both men looked at her in surprise. "His hands," Emma continued, the lie coming easily. "I watched him save a child's life, such precision, such care. Hands that can heal like that, they reveal something about a person's soul." Harold Blackwood's expression remained skeptical, but something in his eyes shifted. "An interesting observation. And tell me, what do you do, young lady?" "I'm a nurse. Emergency medicine." "Ah, so you met through work." At a medical conference, Alexander interjected smoothly. "Emma challenged one of my presentations. She was the only person in the room brave enough to question my conclusions." Emma glanced at him in surprise. This wasn't part of their rehearsed story. Did she now? Harold looked between them with renewed interest. "And were you right, my dear?" "She was," Alexander admitted, his arm sliding around Emma's waist. "It's one of the things I love about her, her willingness to speak truth, even when it's uncomfortable." The conversation continued, Harold probing their relationship from every angle. Emma found herself relaxing into the role, drawing on her observations of Alexander to fill in details of their fictional romance. By the time they left, she thought they had passed the test. "You did well," Alexander said as they drove away. "He's suspicious, but intrigued." "Is that good?" "It's better than I expected." He glanced at her. "The detail about my hands was clever." Emma shrugged. "It wasn't entirely a lie. I have seen you work. You're an exceptional surgeon." Something flickered across his face, surprise, perhaps, or pleasure at the compliment. "Thank you." The weeks that followed settled into an unexpected rhythm. Emma continued her shifts at the hospital, now free from the crushing anxiety of debt. Alexander worked long hours at both his medical practice and the pharmaceutical company. They rarely saw each other during the day, but evenings often found them sharing quiet dinners, discussing their work or the latest visit to Harold. The old man's health fluctuated, some days finding him sharp and demanding, others seeing him confused and frail. Emma found herself genuinely caring for him, bringing small gifts that brightened his sunroom, fresh flowers, books of poetry he mentioned enjoying in his youth, homemade cookies from her mother's recipe. "He likes you," Alexander observed one evening as they returned from a visit. "More than he's liked anyone in years." "He's lonely," Emma replied. "And afraid, though he'd never admit it." Alexander's expression darkened. "He's dying. Fear is rational." "Is that your professional opinion, doctor?" Emma asked, trying to lighten his mood. "It's my human one." He turned away, ending the conversation. That night, Emma lay awake, thinking about the complex man she had agreed to pretend to love. Alexander Blackwood presented himself as cold, calculating, untouchable, yet she had glimpsed moments of something else. The gentle way he adjusted his grandfather's blanket. The passion in his voice when discussing a difficult case. The rare, genuine smile that transformed his face when she managed to amuse him. Dangerous thoughts, she reminded herself. The contract was explicit, no emotional entanglements. She was here to play a role, nothing more. But roles had a way of becoming real when played convincingly enough.